right, the big step 6, animation and effects. Full animation begins right here. This is where the tires hit the road for showing your chops as an awesome animator. So this includes 2D, 3D characters, props, logos, text, backgrounds, fluids, particles, simulations, dynamic effects, interface elements, other design. It doesn't matter. Everything that's going to move, this is when you actually start making it look beautiful. Close attention, of course, should be paid to step 3, which is the thumbnails of the major action. So your funny looking character may be kind of bouncing silly across the screen, but if that character ends up on the other side of the frame at 3 seconds into that shot, then your animation better adhere to that, because that was approved back there. If you've got a nice process of people approving things, you know. So, and of course it changes, it's gonna evolve. I don't want people to think, oh, if it changes, somebody did something wrong, or somebody's trying to annoy me, you know, and then you get all angry and it's, hey, this is a flat rate and I'm not making any money off of this now, whatever. Changes are gonna come. So factor into that if you're estimating, and I'll show you some estimation campfires a little bit later, but factor in that stuff, because everything changes. And my golden rule, again, I got a lot of golden rules. Think about how long something's going to take you and then double it or even triple it, because crap comes up. Like you even think, hey, that shot's going to take me no time at all. I could bang that out in 6 hours. Well, sometimes you don't think about the time it takes you to get the footage, and the footage is in the wrong format. And then you got to proxy it out, and then you got to upload it somewhere else and save it. So there's all kinds of things that you may not think, because you're just looking at the meat of the shot and say, that only takes me so much time. More on that another time. But we're talking about close attention being paid for timing and placement. The 12 principles of animation, right? The famous things we're always talking about that the 9 old men from Disney finally wrote down in a book in the early 80s. Back before then, it was a big secret. The 12 principles of animation are used here in the full capacity of the artist's talent and ability. Lots more on the principles of animation in the classes that we offer here at Stage 3 VFX. The animation should be really close to final when you're done with this stage, but don't spend a ton of time polishing the animation that might be altered, right? Dynamic effects are cashed out, focuses on readability, appeal, all created in support of the message, whatever that message or that shot is. If lip syncing is required, the final speaking performance should be completed and locked in at this point. All right. Now, step 7 is what I call asset finishing and polish. Now, if you're like me and maybe you're bringing in a lot of things from little disparate sources, or you're on a team, you're obviously going to want to have everything referenced in. So if you just have a cube for where that fancy castle should be and it's referenced in, then when they're off making that awesome castle, it's just going to pop into your latest animation file and it's going to look gorgeous. So you're not really playing around with like a ton of different Maya files. Things should be referenced in so they can be completed and added in with a absolute ease of usability, right? So step 7, asset finishing and polish. By this stage, all the assets are built. They're all animated. They're rendered out pretty quickly for continuous review of readability and project effectiveness. Maybe they're still a little noisy in the renders because you wanted to get off the render farm in an hour instead of 6 hours to get all the specular fireflies off of it or whatever. But if there's fireflies in your shot, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, fireflies are those high specular points in a noisy render that didn't have enough time to get sampled out. There's tricks to get rid of all that without keeping it on the render farm for 1,000 years, by the way. And we can talk about that another time. But don't worry about that stuff at this stage, because an intelligent client will say, oh, that stuff's going to be taken care of with a noise reduction technique. But I could see what's going on here, and I know what it's going to look like. So everything's basically animated and rendered quickly for continuous review, readability, project effectiveness, right? The final polish for all the UVing, the surfacing, the texturing, the 3D assets, completion of all the 2D characters, the backgrounds, the matte paintings are completed at this point. Shaders and look dev are built, completed, and approved. Lighting is pretty close to completion here. And care must be, of course, paid to the color scheme choices. Does it still look like what maybe a concept artist intended as far as color, things of that nature? And as well as referring constantly back to maybe step 2, where you have your style contact sheet to achieve the desired look and the vision. All right, step 8, animation polish. Okay, this is where you put every ounce of love you have into the performance of that character, dragon, robot, logo reveal, whatever. Animation love and care isn't just dedicated to Thanos or whoever is real, some CG character. It could be love and care for that Netflix reveal logo. How many, you've all seen the N fly towards the camera and all the little red stripes. They didn't bang that out in 5 minutes, or the logo reveal for Stranger Things has a ton of tiny little details in it. All that love and care and polish. And that polish, that extra 10%, even 15% that you put in at the end, usually is the difference between a pretty good shot and an award-winning shot, right? It's that extra polish, and you want to make sure that you properly and hopefully factor that into your padding for your estimation of how long something's going to take. So step 8, there have been numerous reviews already, and critiques and recommendations and analysis from colleagues and art directors. So polish if it's considered a luxury and squeezed into a schedule as time permits, that is the wrong way to do it, all right? So making this a priority instead of an afterthought is usually the difference between just a competent solution, like I said, and something that people are going to remember. It's going to stand the test of time, right? And I used to work at a brick and mortar university college down the street, and the chair of the department had this wonderful rule, and he always used to say, you should try to be 80 to 90% done with your project at the 50% mark of the time allotted to complete that project or that shot, whatever the case may be. And that gives you time for polish. So seek out constant feedback, external observations. Get up, walk back 10 feet, from your monitor and squint at it and see, does it still read? Can I see what's going on? Maybe if they did that in the, I don't want to bust on Game of Thrones, but if somebody stood up on some of those final battles and walked 10 feet backwards and squinted at the scene, and if they said, I can't see a stinking thing, then your audience isn't going to be able to see a stinking thing either. And so you want to, accommodate for that. So it's vital to be selfless and maintain the perspective of what is best for the project, not the artist. Okay? It's whatever's best for the project. So don't marry yourself to, hey, this was my contribution to this shot, and I'm going to take this whole ship down if my thing doesn't get in. It's not about the artist's contribution. It's about what's best for the project or the shot or anything. Step 9, final audio. It's got to be done at this point, right? Scratch audio is replaced by the final mix down of music effects, voiceover talent, especially if you're in a motion design project. Of course, if you're in a visual effects shot, then it's, again, somebody else's problem, right? But musical choices should be explored and discussed in regards to mood, timing, tempo, applicability, quality, costs, rights. Rights are kind of a big one, right? Don't just steal the latest cool, Taylor Swift, song. That's fine for your demo reel maybe, but don't put it in a project, commercial work. Sound effects should be completed and incorporated. So remember, another mantra that we used to say in that department is half of what you see goes through your ears. I'll say that again. Half of what you see goes through your ears. So you cannot negate the importance of audio, and audio has to be awesome, because you can almost forgive bad visuals, but nobody will forgive bad audio. All right, and the last of my production steps is step 10. I call it compositing and compression. Motion design, visual effects, and animator professionals know what they need to do to get a result out of a rendering engine, and what can be effectively completed in the compositing stage. Not everything has to be done at the rendering stage, right? And, like I said earlier, never go 3D until you have to. That often means the difference between a project that's completed on time and a project or a shot that is not completed on time. So by maintaining full control of this process throughout the use with mats and render passes. I never render anything without a boatload of render passes, or what we call AOVs, arbitrary output variables. Again, that's in some of my digital compositing courses and stuff, and that saves you so much. It saves you, and you know, when something comes up, it's better to render, you know, and have them there and not need it. You know what we always say: it's better to have and not need than need and not have. Right? Multi-channels, big scope channels can be incorporated quickly and easily if required. Right? Final grading, final color correction is applied, as well as maybe some camera effects at the last stage. A little depth of field, a little motion blur, right? A little grain, lens distortion. You know, compositing, I love compositing. It's like cooking. You know, you add a little spice here, a little spice there, and it comes out with all these little extra things. It creates something new, and it's just a beautiful thing. And everyone has their own favorite kind of bag of tricks to put in there to make something look great, right? So again, and then compression. You know, a lot of people don't really think about compression, but if you're a freelancer or you're working on your own, or maybe you're the one-person team on an art team, you better know your file formats, your codecs, your compression schemes, your container files, because you don't want 3 weeks worth of awesome work go down the drain because you kicked it out in a really crappy format. Nobody knows what happened, and it all looks like crap, right? So lossy compression has not been introduced until the very end of this stage, right? And if you want more information on lossy and lossless, again, that's in some of my courses, digital compositing. We talk a lot about that stuff. But all the way up until this stage, especially if you're moving things back and forth between editors, you like everything. If it goes digital, it's lossy. We know that. But you're going to keep the compression artifacts down to the minimum. And that means using things like lossless compression schemes and EXRs. You know, if at any point before now that you were using JPEG in anything, you've already butchered your work. So another thing we say at stage 3 VFX is JPEG sucks. Don't ever use it unless you just need to show someone a preview of what it can look like, right? So right before final delivery, you send it off to the client, and then you go have a nice celebration. Everybody's happy, and you got through your project or your shot, whatever it is. I hope some of this helped. I would love to hear your thoughts on what your processes are. And who knows, maybe we can rewrite both of ours, you know, and talk about what's the best advantage to make sure that artists are not frustrated, artists get home at a decent hour, and milestones are signed off and checked off, and everybody's happy, and there's no surprises at the end of the day, right? So I hope you enjoyed my 10-step process. I'll see you in the next campfire, everybody. Ciao.